All right, introducing PHAR intern and community resident, Alexis Cooper.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Charlottesville City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Alexis Cooper, and I'm an intern at PHAR. This event is hosted by PHAR, the Public Housing Association of Residents, CLIHC, the Charlottesville Low Income Housing Coalition, and the People's Coalition. This event is to educate Charlottesville community about the different candidates in the public. This is a nonpartisan event. All candidates currently running has a seat. Excuse me. All candidates currently running for a seat on the Charlottesville City Council have been invited to participate in tonight's forum. We have Carl Brown, Brian Pinkston, and Juandiego Wade are all running as Democrats. We have Yasmine Washington as an independent. Each candidate will now introduce themselves in alphabetical order. Each of you will, starting by last name, excuse me. Each of you will have 3 minutes to tell us about yourself and your platform. You will receive a warning 15 minutes before your 3 minutes are up. You will be, before your 3 minutes are up. You will be muted. We will begin with Mr. Carl Brown. Please excuse me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carl Brown, and I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia, homegrown. I'm a part of every aspect of this community, from our schools and working in our schools, working in our County schools. I'm currently a management and development consultant, just went back into practice in 2020. Unfortunately, coronavirus kind of put that on the back burner. But I've been in this community for over 50 years. My grandfather migrated to this community years ago, and he was big in the housing movement back in the 60s when West Haven was built. One of my greatest assets is I was mentored by probably the best individuals who have come through this community and made differences, from my grandfather to Joey Brown, to W.T. Lewis, to Garwin DeBerry, and Holly Edwards. My goal is one thing: community, Charlottesville community on all aspects. I believe to be diverse. I don't look at myself as the best candidate, but I look at myself as the most different candidate. And so my work speaks for itself. I've been in this community doing work on one level or another, from early childhood development to reentry to probation. So I have a good feel for this community, and I know those things that we need to do. I'm a big advocate of the housing community. I've done a lot of work in the housing communities for numerous years, and I continue to do that work now as we speak, and I look forward to doing it going forward. I'm not a politician, so I don't come on the council looking to legislate and look as a politician. I am what I am. I am coming to do the work. I work with people very well. I've been working with people well in this community. And so I've been doing the work, and I look to do more work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Next up, we'll have Mr. Brian Pinkston.
I really appreciate y'all having me. Thank you for hosting this event. I'm Brian Pinkston, hence the color of the tie. We came to this area 17 years ago. I grew up in the deep south, a town called Albany, Georgia. Many aspects of my journey ended up bringing me here to go to graduate school at UVA 17 years ago. We've raised our children here. We have 3 grown children now. When we first came here, they were little kids, but now they're grown. They're graduates of CHS and PVCC. I make my living as a project manager in facilities management at the university. Project managers put people, resources, and ideas together to get things done. And so that's what I hope to bring to this conversation, and if elected, what I hope to bring to council. Excuse me. I'm running because I feel like I have something to offer in terms of my professional experience and as a project manager, as a person who spent years in business and industry. I think that I have a leadership ability and managerial expertise that would be valuable on council right now. I also hope and pray that I'm a person of compassion, and that built into my temperament is just the desire to bring people together. I care deeply for issues of equity. One reason I do is because of where I grew up in the Deep South and seeing the legacy of racism there, and just sort of an inbuilt reaction to that my whole life has brought me to a point where that work is not something I want to be bolted onto my candidacy, like, you know, we're just going to do equity, but I want it to be part of everything that I do and every conversation that I have on council. So, and the things that I've tried to plug into in the last few years in the city, I've been the vice chair of the Charlottesville Democratic Committee. I was on the board of Region 10 for a while. I am very active in my church, also Charlottesville, and I'm also on the K-Tech Foundation board. So again, Brian Pinkston, I really appreciate y'all having me and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pinkston. Next up, we'll have Mr. Juandiego Wade.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Juandiego Wade. I am a member of the City of Charlottesville School Board for the last 4 terms or 16 years. I have been married to my wife, Claudette Grant, for the past 28 years. We have a daughter who completed Charlottesville High School last year. She went all the way through Charlottesville City Schools, and she's currently a freshman in college. I went to graduate school here, and I like to say that I cut my teeth on here in the community on volunteering. When I was in graduate school, my senior thesis was doing a project with the NAACP, and that's where I got to learn, meet many of the great leaders in the community, working with them back in 1988 and 90. And when I decided to come to this community, I knew many people at that point. And since then, I've been volunteering, primarily mentoring. That's my, I believe that's pivotal. And that's what I've been doing with countless youth in the community over the past 30 years. I believe that I have the experience to lead and move the city of Charlottesville forward right away. I will support criminal justice reform, affordable housing, public education, economic development, and climate justice. Climate justice that can be done, that common sense improvements that we can do, that every resident can do. I've been talking to a wide range of citizens over the past year, and I believe that my platform aligns to what the residents of Charlottesville want. And I'm looking forward to earning your support and engaging with you all over the next hour and a half. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wade. Next up, we'll have Ms. Yasmine Washington.
Sorry about that. It went on mute. But yeah, my name is Yas Washington. I'm one of 3 other individuals, or one of 4, whatever the case may be, running for city council. Yeah, so I'm 23. I'm really excited with everything that took place in the presidential election, from that to, you know, having to deal with crisis management due to the pandemic. I definitely want to be able to bring people back to governance and what's going on in their own backyard. I definitely think that's important. I think it's something that could overly be like, you know, kind of like forgotten about with everything else that's taking place. So I definitely wanted to re-centralize everyone's focus on what's going on here, what's going on in Charlottesville, and, you know, being able to basically introduce different policies and reforms that could help with through development to be able to build the city up, as we've been talking about, the comprehensive plan, affordability and whatnot, and definitely being able to provide equity with everything that's going on, because we want to make sure that disadvantaged individuals continue to have an equal chance, or they have resources, whether it's from funding or programs that are going to help enhance their quality of living, so that we can work to be able to better the standards of Charlottesville altogether. We can't do that unless everyone is being, essentially lifted up by the reforms that are taking place. But to backtrack, I worked on political campaigns. I worked for Jim Hensley for Commonwealth District Attorney as a political organizer and a communications consultant. And then I also worked for Dr. Karen Webb, who ran for the 5th congressional seat. That was pretty great. I did similar work, basically political organizing as well. I worked a couple of years for Park Stage Apartments as a leasing consultant, where I definitely was able to learn more about housing for sure, and the need for accessibility to housing for low-income individuals, or individuals 0 to 30% of the area median income. So all of that's really important. And then while we're working to do all of that, making sure that we're definitely maintaining public safety through ethical policing and eco-management. Sometimes people are often, especially with all the events that have taken place, we're focusing a lot on, obviously law enforcement, making sure that, ethical policing is being done so that all the residents feel safe and everything of that nature. But also too, definitely making sure that we're getting to the core, which is making sure that we're protecting our foundation as well, is definitely a really vital one. And that was seen through my recommendation for the tree policy. So yeah, I guess we'll be able to get more into things over the course of this forum.
Thank you so much, Ms. Washington. Thank you to everyone else. Okay, so now we'll dive right into the questions, which were provided by our sponsoring organization in advance. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, a yellow sheet of paper will be raised. At 1 minute and 45 seconds, a red sheet will be lifted. Excuse me. Will be lifted, and at 2 minutes, you will be muted. You will be muted by our facilitator, and we will move to the next person. The order for the candidates rotates in the platform, in the pattern, such as the first person will then become the last person, and the last person will then become the first person. Okay, so starting with our question. First question, what makes you the best candidate? Why do you want to be on city council? Starting with Mr. Carl Brown.
Again, I'm smart enough. I learned a long time ago from those before me. I'm smart enough to know that I'm not better than anyone, but I'm humble enough to know that I'm different, and so I accept it. And so coming to this council, I bring the diversity and a different element. We've had a lot of individuals who've been from Charlottesville, but unlike me, don't have a grasp of a community as a whole. I have the ability to go in and out of different areas of this community without restraint and are welcome there. And so I'm familiar with every aspect of public housing and have been since I've been in this community. So in terms of transition is not something that I'm gonna have a difficult time with. And in terms of having a presence, being in those communities is not something I'm gonna have a difficult time with, because I do it now. In terms of what brought me to the city council, after conversations with my work in housing and just different ideas that we could come up with, in terms of just looking at the overall quality of living for individuals there, what we could do, those conversations turned in that I should run for council. So my run for council was more off of my elders and those people in the community who felt like my representation would be good for the council at this point in time. I take that wholeheartedly and I take that very serious. But I accept that role, and I feel like this is a challenge that I can only accept. And so I represent the community as a whole in doing this. I realize this is bigger than me. I think these times right now require some difference and some diversity, and I bring that to the table.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. And next up, we'll have Mr. Brian Pinkston.
Yeah, so I am running for council because I think I have something to contribute. Again, I'm a project manager. I know how to put people, resources, and ideas together to get things done. And I feel like current city council has struggled with that. And I think that a person with my background could help. And so one of the main reasons that I'm running is I feel like city council currently needs to be able to function better as a team to move the city forward. None of us prosper when there's loggerheads on city council. And so again, I bring 30 years of managerial expertise in work in industry and manufacturing and at the university that I think would be helpful in terms of governance. I also am running because I just care deeply for the community, like the other folks here. And I feel like my own life story, my own life journey, and the growth that I've experienced as a person, and coming to Charlottesville 17 years ago, and the gifts that this community has given me in terms of changing my perspectives on a number of things and making me a better human being. I feel like there are things out of that I can contribute back. Again, compassion, empathy, equity, those ideas are really important to me philosophically. They're important to me in terms of my faith. They're important to me in terms of how I live. And so, I'm running for council because I think that I can contribute. So I'm running for city council because I think I can contribute in the ways that I just identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. And now we'll have Mr. Juandiego Wade.
Thank you. What makes me best to serve on city council is that I'm ready to serve. I've served the city and its residents in many different capacities over the last 30 years, serving in leadership roles in numerous nonprofit organizations and being on the forefront on equity issues and serving on the school board. I've assisted many residents in finding jobs by coaching them, resume writing, helping them find, fill out applications. But most importantly, what I've done, I believe, is which got me into volunteering in this community is mentoring. I believe that the foundation of our very city and our country is the youth. And that's what I've been pouring many of my hours into, is volunteering and working with young people. And it's so wonderful now to see that they are grown and now responsible adults in the community. These adults, these youth that I helped many years ago, now they are adults and volunteering and being leaders in the community. That just really is so fulfilling and makes me so proud. I believe that I should be your counsel because I'm prepared to serve. These leadership roles and things that I mentioned before, it has prepared me for this opportunity. Last year, when things shut down, I was actually taking a morning walk through the 10th and Page neighborhood, and the Lord spoke to me and said, you need to continue serving this city. And for me, serving on this as a city council was the next option for me. And here I am. I've talked to many people. Bottom line.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wade.
Thank you.
And now we'll Ms. Yasmine Washington.
Sorry about that. Again, so I'm running for city council. I'm excited. Definitely I plan to be able to introduce a right now plan that's definitely going to help, build Charlottesville back up from the shortfalls that we've experienced over the course of COVID. Also, aside from that, definitely making sure that we're able to stimulate economic activity once again, which we'll start to see a lot of that as these housing and commercial developments start to take place, whether that's from, the school reconfiguration, West Main, or, simply Star Hill and Cherry Avenue. So that would be really great to be able to definitely support, any type of like construction work or building that's going to help, reduce the unemployment rate. That would be really amazing to be able to see that take place. Aside from that, all things economy, there's a lot of talk about the budget right now. Making sure that we're being able to reduce the expenditures is a really big thing, but also to making sure that we're also equally taking care of the people to bring back that, very holistic and humanitarian side. Which is really amazing, making sure that we're able to provide affordable housing, which is something that I would like to be able to prioritize. Also, too, making sure that environmental management through development and everything that increases the emissions, our carbon dioxide emissions. So making sure that we're working to have ordinances like the tree conservation ordinance, so that we're not bulldozing over trees, and rather that we're making sure that the core and the foundation is intact. Sorry, you guys.
Thank you so much, Ms. Washington.
No worries.
Question 2. Do you support taking money from the Charlottesville Police Department budget to pay for programs such as crime prevention, violence interrupter, mental health, non-police traffic, and violence enforcement, and so forth? We will start with Mr. Brian Pinkston first.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really good and important question. The simple answer is I am all for transparency. I see no reason why the police department's budget can't be a line item sort of budget where we understand what's being spent on personnel and salaries and so forth. So the first thing that I would say is I support that level of transparency. I support the Police Civilian Review Board having some teeth. All of those things seem to be no-brainers. It builds trust with the community. It also could build trust on the side of the police force. In terms of redirecting funding, yeah, I think that looking carefully at that budget and looking at the mission of the Charlottesville Police Department and thinking, what is their mission? What are the things they're really supposed to be focused on? And what could be handled in other ways? Absolutely. I am a strong advocate for the CSB Region 10. I think that if funds could be identified that would be better used at the CSB, then I would certainly support that. However, I want whatever we do in this arena to be thoughtfully done and not just sort of a reaction. And so one of the things that I've been doing, I have a young man on my campaign team, an African-American young man, asking him, what do you feel like the police need to be doing? Where do they where can they best serve the city? So my point with that is simply that we need to listen to residents in the various parts of the community and ask them what they think and how they feel this needs to happen, and address those needs in that way. So yeah, the simple answer is yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Next up, we'll have Mr. Juandiego Wade.
Thank you. I believe that the Charlottesville Police should be reimagined. It has to be. I've heard over the last several months, talking to countless residents from every corner of the city, I've heard that that they want funding for the police, but they want the funding and the policing to be different, and that they want support and funding of programs like the mental health program. And I've been supportive of this program called CAHOOTS, and that's an acronym. It's in Eugene, Oregon. I'm not going to get into it right now, but basically what it does, they have had this program implemented for the last 30 years. And what they found is this program actually saves them money, the police department, because it does direct policing or services towards non-type of emergency calls, life-threatening calls. They direct it's almost like an ambulance of mental health workers to go there and help individuals. This has helped save the city millions of dollars over the last 30 years. And I think that that's the programs like that is what we need to look into for the city of Charlottesville. I really think that we need to do this. And what I've heard from talking to police officers and residents is that they all want what's best for the city. And I think with that as a foundation, that we can move forward with any problem we have in this community. And that's what I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Next up, we'll have Ms. Yasmine Washington.
Yeah, so definitely a really big part of governance in our locality, and the job of city council is to maintain public safety, and that's done through tiers. Charlottesville Police Department being one, and the Commonwealth District Attorney being another, or that office and hub is a really great department as well. Definitely making sure that through all of that, building relationships within all of these departments, and making sure that everybody's working together for what's best for each and every resident alike. So I definitely think that all in all, right now they have an operating budget of about a little over $18 million. Definitely with the vesting of the Charlottesville Police Department, as long as it's not affecting the salaries of law enforcement, and as long as it's not, taking away from core parts or like materials, resources that they need to be able to maintain public safety, I'm all here for it, especially if those dollars are being reallocated to social work or non-policing, groups and forms similar to Buck Squad, to name one. And I'm sure, definitely education will probably be in there somewhere, being that, two positions, probably, I do believe it was like resource officers or just the crossword guards were taken away and they were cut from the budget. So, making sure that that money could be possibly reinvested in the school if needed is really great altogether.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. Now
No
we'll
worries.
have Carl Brown.
Just have a background in criminal justice, I clearly understand the dynamics of where the direction of the police department going. And so the conversations are not new. I think from an administrative standpoint, the direction of where the police department wants to go. So the word is not taken, the word is allocating. We need to look to allocate the monies in several different ways, particularly in this Charlottesville Police Department. Our training, number one, we all get trained at the same place from over the mountain somewhere. We need to be establishing new training resumes where our police are trained a different way, where we're not getting the military training, and that being the far most aspect of what we're doing with our police officers. Secondly, de-escalation has always been an issue and we never talk about it, but that's what's needed on our streets right now. Everything is combative from a police department standpoint. Our police officers are different. We're getting a lot of younger police officers. We need to have a process of which those individuals can understand the communities they're going into and the impact of what they do when they go in and be identified at with other officers from the community. And so when we talk about allocation is always needed. To this point right now, the police department has not been very transparent. Anybody who's been in government knows you need to have an itemized budget all the way down to the T. And to this point, we haven't seen that. And so we have an overall budget that just been placed with a number, but we don't know what that is. So the first thing we need to find out is where our money is being spent, and then look at those areas of concern where we have the greatest need and start looking at where we're going to pull money from to put somewhere else for the greater need of this community. This is going to be a customized situation where this is going to be a situation where Charlottesville needs to customize what we're doing. And I do understand we need to look at what other people are doing, but we have a different police department. And so we have some different things we're going to have to deal with. And so we're going to kind of have to come to grips with the transparency of the Charlottesville community and start from scratch from the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Moving on to question number 3. During your elected term in office, what is your commitment to affordable housing, including and especially public housing? For context, Right now, the city has committed to $15 million for public housing development. We'll start with Mr. Juandiego Wade.
Thank you. My commitment to public housing has been and will remain firm and strong. I believe that public housing is only one tool that we should use to address affordable housing that we should consider and employ. We need to look at nonprofit organizations, places like Habitat for Humanity and AHIP. Like for example, AHIP has a program where if you want to stay in your house, they will do some improvements so that you can stay there. Oftentimes, there's some minor improvements that needs to be done to allow you to stay in your house. And so we need to consider programs like that as well. Additionally, we can look at things like land trust, organization like Piedmont Housing has a role in it, tax abatements, but I think a major role in this also is collaboration. Charlottesville can't do this alone. I've heard from many residents that they see people from outside the city come in and take advantage of our wonderful programs and things that we have. So we need to get the county, the university also to support affordable housing to the same level that the Charlottesville does. So if not, then we're going to be too attractive for home seekers. I think that those are just some of the tools that we should consider. I think that public housing is essential. I see it every day when on the school board that if you don't have that firm place at home to do your work, homework, then that has an impact on your education. So I support public housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Next up, we'll have Ms. Yasmine Washington.
Yeah, so in regards to, the plan that I would like to be able to provide when the agenda comes to affordability, affordable housing, and definitely being able to provide equity to low-income individuals, I would like to be able to continue to, make sure that the projects, which are both in phase 1, with Crescent Halls as well as South First Street, making sure that those are redeveloped and that we're able to support them in any way necessary. Also, as well, aside from that, making sure that the money that has been committed to being able to develop affordable housing as well throughout the city is properly being funded. Another thing I would like is like legislation that's just been passed, which is to help with discrimination. It's basically to be able to uphold fair housing when it comes to housing choice vouchers. Making sure that, they're not, that exclusion essentially is not taking place and that, they're not being kind of like pushed to certain areas because, the landlord or the private owner doesn't necessarily want to accept their voucher. So, definitely making sure that we're continuing to uphold that. Probably more of like a legal aid thing, but, anything that city council would be able to do to be able to support that. I'm all here for it. Aside from that, real estate is continuing to be inflated. The numbers are continuing to increase, which is going to pretty much happen throughout development. Making sure that racial equity is definitely provided through home ownership loans and opportunities, as well as the IDA option. All of that is really great. And that's definitely things that I would like to support and programs and projects that are similar to.
Next up, we'll have Mr. Carl Brown.
Oh, I'm definitely for affordable housing, but I think we're talking about two different things because just throughout this campaign, I've said, what group of housing are we talking about? When we're talking about public housing, I'm not even talking about affordable housing at that point, because I believe the work that we're talking about in the public housing will be done on the ground floor. I think we can create programs and resources, which have already been discussed with the variety of individuals that we discussed, Habitat for Humanity, just the very entities in housing, PHAR. Those discussions have been discussed where It's more about helping those individuals who live in those situations and giving them better information when it comes to financial literacy, when it comes to credit building, when it just comes to those basic essentials that they would need to be able to get to afford to a house, and let them kind of design what their overall goal of success is and their better quality of living. Once we start from the ground level and start giving those people a fair shot and providing those opportunities within their communities, those resource centers there are mute. We need to be able to just upgrade those and get the information, computers, where a person can leave their community. Will leave their house and go to the resource center and feel comfortable that they can get whatever they need done, or the resource that they need will be there available to them in that aspect. When we talk about affordable housing, there are a lot of things that need to be done in terms of zoning. So, but a good thing is UVA has now come in. And so it's always been a collaborative effort from day one. Some of the programs we've been talking about is just creating a model where the people who have vouchers can go through a process while they're waiting, where we can build better relationships with those realtors who may or may not want to rent to them, and give them a better, smoother handoff when we introduce them prior to cold calls. Just working with that population, I understand the biggest discrepancy is people get cold calls.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Now we'll begin with Mr. Brian Pinkston.
Yes, so I support the affordable housing plan that was recently endorsed by City Council in March. I think that it's a robust plan. It's not perfect, but the structure of the plan and the funding that it lays out and the governance structures that it builds in, the pieces about subsidies, the call for upzoning in many parts of the city, and specifically the $10 million a year commitment over the course of 10 years. I support that. That will be a priority of mine. Part of that is the current $15 million a year commitment, $15 million commitment, sorry, not a year, but the commitment to public housing. Okay, my internet acts like it's unstable. Can people hear me?
I can.
Okay, sorry. The $15 million commitment to public housing, the projects that are ongoing now, I support those and will make those a priority. I realize there's a recent report put out by CLIHC, I believe, indicating that not all upzoning is a good thing, that it can lead to displacement in areas like 10th and Page. I think that that's a valid point. And so whatever is done on housing, I want it to be thoughtfully done and responsive to the needs of the community. So I think the short answer is yes, I'm committed to the plan that's been laid out, endorsed by council. That will be a funding priority of mine. Not only the sort of headline numbers, but also the details of putting a governance structure in place such that we actually meet our commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Moving on to question number 4. What can you do about the safety in the housing sites? Starting with Ms. Yasmine Washington.
Yeah, so again, to be able to address, public safety, definitely there's been some incidences or occurrences that have taken place, specifically in regards to gun violence, over the past, couple of months or, I do believe. And definitely in regards to West Haven, there's been discussions about making sure that there's security on property, kind of similar to how there was leading up through the past year until a little bit after summer, I do believe. And they're working to be able to renew their either a contract with the previous security company or a new one. I think having things like that in place definitely reduces the crime rate in those individual hubs or neighborhoods, just aside from West Haven, just all of those neighborhoods altogether. When it comes to inner city, definitely making sure that we're protecting the safety of each and every individual, making sure that there's, even if there's just simply, an officer, a squad car, coming by regularly on, the hour or every other hour. I definitely think that when people know that there's a police presence there it causes less things to take place. Or, definitely we don't want, approaching the summer, we don't want gun violence to be a really big issue within the community, and then having to worry about the safety of children. They're still out of school and everything, and worrying about, whether or not if we'll lose a child over the summer due to that. So making sure that we're addressing that and being proactive by making sure that we're strengthening, the relationship between Charlottesville Police Department or a private security firm is really great.
Thank you so much, Ms. Washington.
No worries.
Mr. Carl Brown.
I think we need to look at all things being said. And so some of this violence has impacted me in knowing an individual who actually was killed in First Street. The unfortunate thing is we have to be very conscious, because a lot of what goes on is from people that are not in community. And so we have to be more vigilant as a community. But again, that comes from the top. Charlottesville has always been a vulnerable place, particularly when our leadership is not in place. And so when everything is in disarray, things like this happen, and people prey on Charlottesville coming from other areas. Just knowing the community like I know, those individuals who live in that community are not the ones who are perpetuating these crimes. There are individuals who come into those communities who do that. And so we need to look at how we're going to be able to get our police department and those other or local programs and Bucksport on the same page, where we get an understanding of just the presence of positivity in the community. When we talk about resource centers and things of that nature, and investing more into those communities, people be less likely to go into them. Up until this point, the Charlottesville community and the council has not done a good job of maintaining the investment into that community. And so it becomes a money thing where we just say we want to throw money into it and let's see what happens. We need to look at these as people and not just assets, and be able to go in and show a positivity. They'll take ownership into their own investment once we do. But until we do that, other people are going to come in and try to dominate them and put the blame on them, as they're the ones who are the shooters or the perpetuators. And so we need to be honest and true with this whole situation. I understand when we have issues like that, it's coming from the top. And so we put the burden on them to protect themselves, but we haven't even put the investment into those communities for a long period of time. And now when those things happen, we're asking, what can we do? We as a community, we can invest.
So much, Mr. Brown. Now we'll have Mr. Brian Pinkston.
Yeah, I think that this issue really reflects the tensions that are involved in the whole policing discussion. On the one hand, we need our police forces to be more thoughtful, more careful. They need to be trained in de-escalation, as Mr. Brown said. We need to be more cognizant that so many of these issues are due to substance use disorder or mental health issues. On the other hand, we clearly need the police to be present in these areas, or having people come from outside of the city and wreak havoc on our community. I don't know how many. A few weeks ago, I guess there were 87 shots fired in the city. And now it's probably well over 100. And it really is a tragedy. And so I think being thoughtful with the policing, I think that listening to the residents of the community in terms of what they want and what they need in terms of security systems, what they feel would be an appropriate level of safety. I do think a holistic approach will be necessary, as Mr. Brown and Ms. Washington just suggested. We're going to have to, it can't just be the police, but the police have a role. And we do want them to be part of the community, and for people to feel like they are there as an advocate, not as an occupying force. And so honestly, on this topic, it's something that I would be very interested to hear from actual residents in terms of their preferences and how they feel best response would be, so that City Council could work with the police and other actors to make sure we craft an appropriate response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Next up, we'll have Mr. Juandiego Wade.
Thank you. I think that the answer really lies in working with existing leaders in these communities. These individuals and these groups, they have the credibility and the trust of the residents. And organizations such as the Buck Squad has been mentioned before. they already have the credibility in the community. I think that we need to provide these stakeholders, these individuals, the support and the resources that they need to address it. And part of it is clearly community policing, but I think that we need to ask the residents what they want. Authentically ask them, what do you want to make your residents, to make your home safe? What can we do as a city? It could be, I'm sure the schools play a role in that. It could be Parks and Rec. It could be some other type of programs. But let's ask the residents what they want, what they need to make their homes safe. Because we can come up with all these solutions, but if we don't ask the residents what they want, then I think it's all for naught. So these communities, they have people in that community that are stakeholders, that they've been in there, they know every youth, they know every person, they know what's going on. I've seen it. My wife was a leader, a community leader in Friendship Court. So I've seen it. They're leaders in these communities. Those are the people that we need to go to and say, what do you need? What can we do? And so I will be on the front line to assist with those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Moving on to question number 5. Do you have greater political aspirations beyond Charlottesville City Council? First, we'll start with Mr. Carl Brown.
As I said before, I'm not a politician, so my goal is city council and to see Charlottesville prosper and everybody in it. And that's everybody in Charlottesville. This is the inroad. I don't have any aspirations after this, but city council. Charlottesville is it. And so to answer that question bluntly, no, I have no aspirations. I just want to see the city that I grew up in and that I raised my kids in prosper like it can.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next up, we'll have Mr. Brian Pinkston.
The short answer is no, I do not. This is a role, and you can talk with anyone, most of, I'm sure you have, current city councilors. This is a hard job. And if you're not in it for service, if you're not in it because you're willing to work nights and weekends on top of, an existing occupation, then you shouldn't be doing it. So no, I mean, the goal here is service, public service. I responded to this opportunity 2 years ago when I ran the first time because I saw a need. I saw a way that I could contribute with my gifts and strengths and history and journey, and the same this time. So it's all about service. If it's not about service, then you shouldn't be in it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Next up, we'll have Mr. Juandiego Wade.
So again, my short answer to that would be no as well. But I always give the disclaimer, I never say never, because if you asked me last March of 2020, would I be running for city council, I would have said no. But when you get the feeling to do something that you feel like you can make a difference, then it happens. But right now, if there's the Lord's will for me to get on city council and I can make it through those 4 years, I would be happy. And I have no intentions of running for any other thing at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. We will now end with Ms. Yasmine Washington.
Yeah, so originally I started off more as like an activist and everything, definitely talking about issues taking place in Charlottesville as I have grassroots to the community. I'm from here, born and raised. And then I noticed that I kept having an overlap between what I was talking about, the issues and politics. So I became a politico working on political campaigns. And originally when I first started working for Jim Hensley, I told my mom that I was running for city council eventually. So now we're here, we're at this moment. I'm running for an elected position. And I definitely plan on, I'm doing the work. And it's definitely, like Brian Pinkston said, you're doing the work for the people. And if you're not in it for that, you're definitely not in it for the dollars, because it's pennies compared to the amount of hours that you put in. Definitely, I think it's important to be able to do the work. I'm doing the work of the greater good, and I'm really excited to be able to bring about change in a way that, you can definitely see results from a political standpoint. I do plan on running eventually as a delegate, to be a delegate. And then who knows? I'm gonna go on ahead and see where it takes me from there. But I'm definitely in politics for the long haul.
Thank you, Ms. Washington.
No
Moving
worries.
on to question number 6. What are your goals for this city? We'll begin with Mr. Brian Pinkston.
Yeah, so I think the overarching goal that I would have is to be a part of a team on city council that functions well as a group, where there's mutual respect amongst the folks there. And even if they disagree, they're able to advance the city's business, because if that's not there, then nothing else can happen. I think another really key thing that's going to happen over this next council is hiring the next city manager. Mr. Chip Boyles has done a great job, and he'll certainly be in the running. But that process needs to be fair and transparent, and so that's going to be a really important thing. So an important goal of mine. Another important goal will be getting this comprehensive plan, assuming it's wrapped up, turning that into the appropriate zoning laws, such that the real granular, fine-grained pieces that affect actual property, that's done in a fair and equitable way. There are lots of other things that I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see stronger relationships with the university and the city, with the county and the city. There's levels of dysfunction that you hear about that I would like to just see transcended. I would like to see our city government itself, the folks who work for the city, really feel proud of working for the city and have stability within that city organization. I'm a big proponent of the schools reconfiguration plan. I want to get behind that, and whatever it takes to get that done, I want to be a part of it. I think that investing in business, getting businesses back off the ground after COVID is certainly very important, and that'll be something that's a priority of mine. I think having a vibrant downtown area is good for the entire city. And then the last thing we keep talking about is affordable housing, so executing.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Next up, we'll have Mr. Juandiego Wade.
Yeah, so my goals for the city, it would be, briefly mentioned them before, is to work with criminal justice reform, seeing how that can be reimagined. I'll be hope to work with the community, the police department, to see that realized. Secondly, is to continue to work with affordable housing. That's something that I've been volunteering with in that arena for many years, and had a hand in working with the university in addressing that issue, and them saying that they will try to, I'm committed to 1,500 units over the next 10 years. Thirdly, it's been my passion for the last 15 years or 16 years, is public education. It's vital. We have that child with us from 7 in the morning, sometimes to 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So we need to continue to support public education. It's vital to the city. We have a wonderful school department, and also with economic development. We need to get the city back up on their feet. We need to support our businesses so that they can create taxes, so that it'll be less burden for us to raise real estate tax or to have any other type of tax. If our businesses are up and going and they are having tourists to come in and hotels, then that's less burden for us to raise taxes. And finally, is climate justice. Oftentimes, climate justice and the environmental impacts disproportionately impact communities of color. And so I will work to address that, because it's vital, and it's the health of our youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. We will now have Ms. Yasmine Washington.
So there's definitely a really great trio that will help make a greater Charlottesville. And I think that that's development, equity, and sustainability. Now, the question is to how do we bring all of that about? It's definitely through budget oversight. Definitely making sure that we're supporting projects and programs that are provisional, that are going to help continue to build the city up. And then aside from that, project management, which is going to make me pivot to the core of what my vision for Greater Charlottesville is, since we're talking about the comprehensive plan and definitely taking progressive strides towards urbanization, which is urban planning and development, and making sure that we're creating a plan that's functional but yet effective, and it's going to help definitely get the ball rolling on a lot of these projects that have kind of been tabled or whatever the case is due to lack of funding or just because there hasn't been a proper management procurement. Sorry about that. Just to make sure that that there's funding, resources, material, and also staffing to be able to support these projects prior to them being introduced, which is going to help. I definitely think give people the sense of the sense that Charlottesville's government is definitely doing their job to be able to bring these projects to fruition. Once again, it's going to automatically increase economic activity, which is going to be able to help keep doors open in regards to businesses when we start talking about, definitely making sure that we're properly reallocating the budget and all of that through definitely criminal justice reforms, making sure that we're reducing our expenditures at ACRJ per inmate per day by making sure they're getting the attention that they need as well from OAR.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will now end with Mr. Carl Brown. Mr. Carl Brown.
So first of all, get back to the organizational goals that were cited by the City Council a long time ago, which is leadership, respect, trust, creativity, and excellence, which Charlottesville is based off of. At this point, we're talking about a lot of different things, and I'm not hearing a lot of that. And so the first thing we need to do, the organizational goals of the council is to bring those things. So I will bring all of those things to the table. Plus, I understand that the way the city is going to move is through the people. So I will be a positive for the people of Charlottesville and represent the people of Charlottesville in a way where I will be transparent, I will be available, and I will be in the know in why everything is moving. In terms of policy legislation, I will partner with those individuals and build a team, and I'm a team player, to be able to listen and to be able to give insight to those players on the board, whoever's on the board at that point in time, so we can get things going. And there's not a lot of back and forth going, with an understanding that we need to do some things and be able to provide each perspective from various perspectives and represent the community as a whole. And so again, my commitment is to show Charlottesville that diversity is where we need to be going, and that we're going to have, if this community is going to be diverse, we need to be represented from top to bottom in that way, and not picking and choosing who we want to be there. It's time for us to be diverse across the board. I'm from Charlottesville, born and raised. And so I represent the people of Charlottesville as a whole, literally. And so I bring that to the table, and I work my hardest. That's my commitment. Whatever it takes for us to get back on track and to get our people moving from the bottom to the top, I'm willing to work for it, and I will be transparent in doing it. Oh, I have more. Oh, that's it. I can go more longer, but that's okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. And thank you to all four of you guys for answering our questions. We will now give each of you 3 minutes to address any other questions or to share any final thoughts. We will start with Mr. Juandiego Wade.
Wow. I just want to let the residents of Charlottesville know that I am a person that is committed to service. I have been a humble public servant in this community for 30 years. I cut my teeth on working with young people in the early 90s, volunteering with a group of young men that I took from Walker all the way through Walker and Buford and Charlottesville High School. And during that time, I got to know their family. I got to know their parents. I got to know that these young men. And during that time, I saw changes that needed to be made that I felt should be made in Charlottesville City Schools. And that was sparked me to run for the school board. And we've made those changes. We still have improvements and things that we can do, but we've achieved a graduation rate of students of color of 97%. That was work and effort done by members of the Charlottesville community and the school board to make that change. I consider myself a leader. You will get with me calm, steady, reliable leadership. I've proven that over the last 30 years in this community with a wide range of working with nonprofit organization. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a Christian. I am very involved with my church. I've taken many youth from the public housing and communities of color with mission trips, international mission trips, and mission trips around the United States, so that they can see themselves outside the city of Charlottesville. I've procured scholarships for many individuals in the community. I've helped them get jobs. I'm here to serve, and I've proven that over the last 30 years, and will be prepared on day one to serve this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Now we'll have Ms. Yasmine Washington.
Yeah, so definitely being able to bring about progression through policy is going to be really amazing, being that I'm hoping I get elected this upcoming November. Definitely with whoever the two candidates are who become the next counselors that are added to the infrastructure. I definitely think that that'll completely alter the direction of Charlottesville. I think it's going to determine the initiatives that are taken for the next couple of years to come. So definitely, once again, staying true to why I'm running, which is to enhance the quality of living for each and every resident, regardless of socioeconomic group or status, which I definitely think that by taking care of each hub in Charlottesville, whether that's reaching out to different neighborhood associations and all of that, it's definitely helping with that inclusive part that we would like to be able to uphold through the strategic plan, by making sure that whether it's, addressing public safety by, doing alterations to the road designs to make sure that we're able to incorporate walkability through sidewalks, through development, or, making sure that we're able to provide equity again to inner city, or making sure that we're addressing, crime, and making sure that it continues to be a descending trend. We don't want to see that pop back up. So, all of that, doing the best that we can to maintain public safety. Again, I definitely would like to be able to revive the environmental management part of things. Making sure that we have those tree ordinances and everything that's able to conserve the trees, making sure that we're protecting the foundation. It's a really important part and a core part of our ecosystem. It helps reduce flooding, or prevent flooding as rainfall occurs. Also, too, it's a really important part of our air quality, as it helps to, give off oxygen to fight off the carbon dioxide emissions. So, getting back to that, quite a few years ago, I think we were more, like aggressive with the approach. I think now we've kind of fallen off of it a little bit. So getting all of that back, as well as making sure that the crisis management doesn't just stay in a bubble of addressing COVID, but that we continue to, work towards, decreasing the numbers of individuals who are homeless, which, you can see that through things like TJAC and the new development or hotel that they just purchased out on 29, and making sure that City Council is working to be able to support things like that in the budget is really great.
Thank you so much, Ms. Washington. Now we'll have Mr. Carl Brown.
My message is clear. I'm not talking hypothetics. I'm talking about the work that's already being done. For a long time, there have been a lot of great ideas in this community about how we can better help serve those individuals in public housing. And then it gets skewed because now public housing becomes affordable housing. My message to public housing is, like many of you I work with now, patience and process. And we will go through those processes together, not in a sense that I am not going to be relevant, because I know what it takes to motivate people on that level, to motivate people to see them want more for themselves. And so I'm not going to hit you with a lot of semantics about what the budget and all that. I understand the individuals themselves want to do better, and I can help that by providing those resources in your communities that will allow you to do that. And then we'll let those other things take care of themselves. Those are bigger ventures, and we can look at those and maybe save money on it. And so I come to you already working. I don't come to you as going to work. I have already worked, and I will continue to work. And I bring your best interest to heart. I always have. Many of your children, many of your grandchildren I have raised, and I'll continue to do that because, again, I'm committed to Charlottesville and I'm from Charlottesville.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Now we'll have Mr. Brian Pinkston.
Yes, Mr. Brown on a show with Jerry Miller made a point about how different people in the city have different narratives, different stories, different things that they bring. And I think I really liked the point that he made. And for myself, the narrative that I have and the story that I have, I came here 17 years ago. This part of the world has been very good to my family. I've grown by being associated with it, and I want to give back. I have a certain set of professional skills that I've demonstrated over 30 years in terms of management that I think would be very valuable in city council. I also feel like that I have a temperament, I have a temperament that's geared towards reconciliation and healing and trying to find common ground. And so I'm hopeful that those two things together would be of value on city council to helping our city move forward. I think of what the city and city council needs to do right now is it's like a raft on a river or a canoe on a river that needs to be rebuilt while we're going downstream. There's a lot of things that we need to do at the same time. We need to execute against this affordable housing plan. We need to have a strong city council. We need to have a strong city manager. We need to have a city government that works well. Just the daily, everyday pieces about sidewalks and being responsive to people who have potholes. At the same time, we have these major issues with inequity that are generations in the making that we need to address. And it's going to take money to address those things. And so we need to do all of that at the same time while still keeping the city on track. And so that's what I hope to be able to contribute. And I know the folks on this call, and I'm confident that whoever of us gets elected, we can work well together. I'm very grateful for the time that you've given me and all of us tonight, so thank you. I will point you to each of our websites, and maybe there'll be a chance for that to be shared later. Mine is pinkstonforcouncil.org. And again, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning into tonight's candidate forum hosted by PHAR, CLIHC, and the People's Coalition. The 2021 City Council Democratic primary election will be held Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. And the 2021 general election will be held, excuse me, November 2nd, 2021. Have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to